19 years, 193 wins, 0 losing seasons. And just like that, it was over. When Mike Tomlin walked into Art Rooney II's office on January 13th and resigned as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he didn't just end the longest tenure of any active NFL head coach. He detonated 56 years of organizational stability that had seen just 3 men lead this franchise since 1969. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. Legends who built dynasties, won Super Bowls, and created a culture that every team in the league envied. And now, 11 days after Tomlin's shocking resignation, the Steelers shattered their own blueprint by hiring Mike McCarthy, the 62-year-old Pittsburgh native who spent 13 years in Green Bay and 5 in Dallas, who won a Super Bowl by beating Tomlin's Steelers in 2011, and who becomes the oldest head coach in franchise history. Not a young defensive coordinator, not an up-and-coming genius, a veteran who's been fired twice, who sat out the entire 2025 season, and who now inherits a 10-7 team that hasn't won a playoff game since 2016. The NFL just watched Pittsburgh do something it swore it would never do, and the shockwaves are only beginning. Smash that subscribe button right now, because this story isn't about Mike McCarthy's resume. This is about the end of an era, the desperation of a franchise trying to fix something that might not have been broken, and what happens when tradition collides with impatience. The announcement came Saturday afternoon, January 25th, 2026, and the reaction was instant chaos. Steelers fans erupted in confusion. "We just hired a 62-year-old recycled coach," one tweet read. "This is embarrassing," another said. Former Steelers running back Le'Veon Bell went nuclear on social media. 4-13 incoming. "But hey, at least Mike Tomlin isn't the coach of the Steelers anymore, right?" he wrote sarcastically, capturing the frustration of a fan base that watched their beloved coach get pushed out after never having a single losing season in 19 years. Because that's the reality everyone's dancing around. Mike Tomlin didn't fail. He resigned. But everyone knows he was forced out. The writing was on the wall after yet another one-and-done playoff loss, this time a 30-6 demolition by the Houston Texans in the wildcard round. It was the Steelers' 8th straight playoff loss dating back to 2017, and Art Rooney II, the team president who publicly said he wanted Tomlin back, clearly didn't mean it. Because if he did, Tomlin would still be there. But he's not, and now Mike McCarthy, the man who beat Tomlin in Super Bowl XLVI 16 years ago, is taking his job, and the irony is suffocating. Because McCarthy's hire represents everything the Steelers have never been: desperate, impatient, willing to abandon their identity for a quick fix. Pittsburgh has built its legacy on hiring young, unproven defensive coordinators and letting them grow into legends. Chuck Noll was 37 when he was hired in 1969. Bill Cowher was 34 in 1992. Mike Tomlin was 34 in 2007. All defensive minds, all first-time head coaches, all given time to build something sustainable, and all of them delivered championships. But McCarthy? He's 62. He's been a head coach for 18 seasons across 2 franchises. He's won a Super Bowl, sure, but he's also been fired twice. By Green Bay after 13 years when his relationship with Aaron Rodgers deteriorated beyond repair, and by Dallas after 5 years where he went 49-35 in the regular season, but just 1-3 in the playoffs. This is not the Steelers' way. This is panic. Art Rooney II tried to spin it differently in his statement. Mike McCarthy is a proven winner who understands the Steelers' culture because he grew up here. He's the right coach to lead us into the future. But that statement rings hollow when you consider what just happened. The Steelers, accepted the resignation of the winningest coach they've had since Chuck Noll, a coach who went 201-114-2, including playoffs, a coach who won a Super Bowl in his 2nd season, a coach who made the playoffs 12 times in 19 years, and they replaced him with a guy who's 11-11 in the postseason and whose last playoff win came after the 2022 season with the Dallas Cowboys. The math doesn't add up, unless you understand what this is really about. Urgency. Rooney said it himself.
We want to compete from day one. I don't like the word rebuild. Translation, we're win now. We're all in, and we think Mike McCarthy can get us there faster than anyone else. But can he? That's the $70 million question, because McCarthy's track record is complicated. In Green Bay, he was brilliant. 13 seasons, 135 wins, 9 playoff appearances, a Super Bowl ring in 2011. He developed Aaron Rodgers into one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, coaching him through his first 2 MVP seasons. He won the NFC North 6 times. He built one of the most dominant offenses of the 2010s. But then it all fell apart. The relationship with Rodgers soured, the playoff losses piled up, and after a 4-7-1 start in 2018, the Packers fired him. He sat out the 2019 season, then resurfaced in Dallas in 2020, and for 5 years he was fine. Not great, fine. The Cowboys went 12-5 3 straight seasons from 2021 through 2023. They won the NFC East twice, but they couldn't win in January. 1-3 in the playoffs, back-to-back wildcard exits, and after a 7-10 disaster in 2024, Jerry Jones let his contract expire, and both sides moved on. So McCarthy sat out 2025, waiting for the right opportunity, and Pittsburgh apparently was it.
The Steelers are betting that McCarthy's experience, his Super Bowl pedigree, and his hometown roots will unlock something that Tomlin couldn't. But what exactly was Tomlin failing at? He never had a losing season. 19 years, not once. The Steelers were always competitive, always in the playoff hunt, always relevant. But they couldn't win when it mattered most. 8 straight playoff losses. No playoff victory since beating the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round after the 2016 season. That's the frustration. That's what cost Tomlin his job. But is that really his fault? Or is it the roster? Because let's be honest, the Steelers' quarterback situation has been a mess for years. Ben Roethlisberger limped through his final seasons on one leg. Mitchell Trubisky was a disaster. Kenny Pickett showed flashes but couldn't stay healthy or consistent. And then Aaron Rodgers arrived in 2025 at age 42, threw for 3,300 yards and 24 touchdowns with just 7 interceptions, led the Steelers to a 10-7 record and an AFC North title, and then got demolished by the Texans in the wildcard round. One and done. Again. And Tomlin took the fall. Again. Now, McCarthy inherits that same mess. Rodgers is not under contract for 2026. He could retire, he could return, he could go somewhere else. Nobody knows. But here's the twist. McCarthy and Rodgers have history. 12 years together in Green Bay, a Super Bowl, 2 MVP seasons, a relationship that ended ugly but can't be denied. And now McCarthy is in Pittsburgh and Rodgers is a free agent, and everyone's wondering if this hire was about convincing Rodgers to run it back one more time. Tom Pelissero of NFL Network reported that the Steelers' decision wasn't about Rodgers, but let's be real. Of course it was. Why else would you hire a 62-year-old offensive coach with ties to your aging quarterback? This screams desperation to keep Rodgers happy and in the building for one more Super Bowl run. And if Rodgers says yes, if he comes back and plays under McCarthy again, the narrative shifts. Suddenly, this hire looks genius. But if Rodgers retires or leaves, Pittsburgh is stuck with a first-time Steelers head coach in his 60s, trying to develop Will Howard, the 6th-round rookie quarterback they drafted in 2025, or some other unproven prospect they take at pick 21 in the upcoming draft. That's not a recipe for immediate success. That's a rebuild. The exact thing Rooney said he didn't want. The defensive side of the ball is equally uncertain. Tomlin was a defensive guru. His fingerprints were all over that side of the ball. But McCarthy? He's an offensive coach, a West Coast system disciple. He'll need to hire a defensive coordinator immediately, and rumors are already swirling. Raheem Morris, Tomlin's close friend who just got fired by the Atlanta Falcons, is being mentioned as a potential target. If McCarthy hires Morris, it creates an awkward dynamic. Tomlin's best friend working for the guy who replaced him? That's weird.
But Morris is available, battle-tested, and helped the Rams win a Super Bowl as their defensive coordinator in 2021. He's also intimately familiar with the Steelers' culture because of his relationship with Tomlin. It would be a smart hire, but it would also be a constant reminder of what Pittsburgh just lost. The reaction across the NFL has been mixed. Some analysts praise the move. McCarthy is a proven winner. He knows how to handle a veteran roster. This is the right call for a team that wants to win now, one ESPN analyst said. Others were skeptical. The Steelers just abandoned their entire identity. They've always hired young defensive coordinators and let them grow. This feels like Jerry Jones made this decision, not Art Rooney, a former NFL executive said. And fans? They're split. Older Steelers fans who remember the glory days are cautiously optimistic. McCarthy has a ring, he's from Pittsburgh, he understands the culture. Younger fans are furious. They wanted someone innovative, someone exciting, someone who represents the future, not the past. Instead, they got a recycled coach who's been fired twice and sat out an entire season. Le'Veon Bell's tweet captured that frustration perfectly. 4-13 incoming. It's harsh, it's brutal, but it's also what a lot of people are thinking, because McCarthy's Cowboys teams were maddeningly inconsistent, dominant in the regular season, pathetic in the playoffs, and now he's supposed to fix the Steelers' playoff drought with an aging quarterback, with a roster that needs significant upgrades at offensive line and wide receiver? The skepticism is warranted. But here's the thing, McCarthy isn't wrong for the job, he's just different. And different is scary for a franchise that has valued stability and tradition above everything else for over half a century. The Steelers have only had 4 head coaches since 1969. 4. The Browns have had 16 in that same span. The Cowboys have had 10. The Raiders have had 21. Pittsburgh's continuity is legendary, and now they've broken that by hiring someone who's been around the block, who's been fired before, and who's older than any coach they've ever employed. Chuck Noll retired 10 days before his 60th birthday. McCarthy is already 62. He's the oldest head coach in Steelers history. That's not inherently bad. Andy Reid is 66 and just won his 3rd Super Bowl. But it's a departure, and departures are risky.
The offensive coordinator position is another fascinating subplot. McCarthy has called plays for most of his career, but who will be his OC in Pittsburgh? Will he bring in someone from his Dallas staff? Will he hire a young innovator to bring fresh ideas? Or will he just run the offense himself and hire a figurehead coordinator? These questions matter because the Steelers need offensive creativity. They ranked 20th in points per game in 2025, despite having a top 10 defense. That's not good enough. McCarthy's West Coast system emphasizes timing, rhythm, and precision. It works when you have a smart veteran quarterback who can make quick decisions. If Rodgers returns, the fit is perfect. But if they're starting Will Howard or drafting Ty Simpson from Alabama at pick 21, McCarthy will have to adjust his system significantly. And that's not easy for a coach who's been running the same offense for 2 decades. The draft is critical. The Steelers pick 21st overall. They desperately need help at wide receiver. George Pickens is good, but inconsistent. DK Metcalf, the big-name free agent, could be available, but signing him would cost a fortune. Makai Lemon from USC is projected to be available at 21 and would give Pittsburgh a legitimate number 2 receiver. But if Ty Simpson is still on the board, do the Steelers take him and commit to developing a young quarterback under McCarthy? Or do they go all in on weapons for Rodgers and hope for one more run? These decisions will define McCarthy's tenure before he even coaches a game. Art Rooney II is betting everything on this hire. He said he wanted to compete immediately. He said he didn't want to rebuild. And by hiring McCarthy, he's signaling that the Steelers are in win-now mode. But what if they don't win? What if Rodgers retires and the offense struggles and they go 7-10 or worse? Does McCarthy get fired after 1 season? Does Pittsburgh finally admit they made a mistake? Or do they give him time, like they gave Tomlin, like they gave Cowher, like they gave Noll? Because if there's one thing the Steelers have always done better than anyone else, it's patience. But patience requires belief.
And right now, a lot of people don't believe in this hire. Mike Tomlin deserved better. 19 years of excellence, 19 years of never quitting, never tanking, never giving up. And his reward was a forced resignation because the playoffs didn't go his way for 8 straight years? Meanwhile, McCarthy, who's been fired twice and has the exact same playoff struggles Tomlin had, gets handed the keys to one of the most storied franchises in sports? It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel fair. But fairness doesn't matter in the NFL. Results do. And Mike McCarthy has exactly 1 season to prove this gamble was worth it. Because if the Steelers miss the playoffs, if they finish with a losing record, if Rodgers retires and the offense collapses, Pittsburgh will have broken 56 years of tradition for nothing. And that's a legacy no one wants. This story is based on reports from Yahoo Sports, ESPN, CBS Sports, Fox News, NFL.com, Steelers.com, and various outlets covering Mike McCarthy's hire, Mike Tomlin's resignation, and the Steelers' organizational direction.